Welcome to a special edition of Steel Talks. This episode focuses on ArcelorMittal's most important commitment, safety. We are now 1 year into a 3-year journey toward world-class safety performance, and today's discussion looks at the progress made so far and the priorities that will drive the next steps. Joining the conversation are 3 leaders central to this effort. Davey, Executive Vice President responsible for safety. Pinakin Chaubal, Chief Technology Officer with responsibility for process safety management, and Paulmier, Head of Corporate Health and Safety. They'll reflect on what has been achieved since the extensive safety audit by DSS Plus that concluded just over a year ago, the actions that are already making a difference, and the work ahead as ArcelorMittal continues driving toward a zero fatality, zero serious injury future.
Brad, Pinakin, Robin, welcome to the podcast. I'd like to start with you, Brad, with a really an opening question about this critical topic of safety. We're just over a year on from the publication of the DSS Plus audit. Before we talk about progress, could you just remind us what this audit was and what the recommendations were that came from it?
The rationale for this audit was to accelerate our progress to become a zero fatality and zero serious injury company. Now, it was the most extensive audit we've ever undertaken. It was 9 months in duration, 155 sites were audited. There was process safety management audits on the 14 highest risk assets we have in our group. And we examined all health and safety management practices across the entire group as well. Now, the conclusions from it were that our strategy, which is fundamentally based on 2 pillars of risk management and culture, is the right one. We have excellent standards, policies, and procedures. There are some improvements we will make to them, but they're very strong to begin with. Our biggest issues are that we lack consistency in application and performance across our group. We need additional focus on contractor safety. I think that led to some very logical conclusions then, which was to improve the identification and understanding of operational risk that we're exposed to. That we needed to strengthen our existing health and safety assurance model so that we could have more even performance across the group. We need to continue to embed safety values, mindsets, and behaviors to achieve the one safety culture that we're after. We need to improve our contractor safety management standards and adopt industry best practices. And I say industry. Much of this learning will come from petrochemical industries, who really are at the forefront of process safety management. And then we'll integrate all of these elements also into supporting business processes.
And there's some terms in there I'd really like to come back to, particularly that idea of process safety management. But just before we do, turning to you, Robin, 1 year on, what has happened?
So the first year has focused on setting the foundations for the sustainable improvement. It started with a very strong engagement across the organization, driven by leadership, right from the very top. We also developed our roadmaps, which are our action plans for 3 years. We have more than 130 roadmaps across the group, which are very well structured in a common, according to a common template. They are gathering more than 2,400 actions. We started to set a framework for our process safety management with pilot plans, but also with bow ties and minimum mandatory barriers across the group. We have reinforced our collaboration with contractors, better embedding contractors into our processes, leadership training that we also improved, starting from the very top with a big coaching program for our top 84 VPs and CEOs.
Brad, even at the top line, that sounds incredibly comprehensive. Let's dig a bit into the details, starting with assurance. You've made changes to your assurance model, again, following the recommendations of the audit. Could you explain what you've done, how it's working, and what benefits it's bringing as well?
It's been quite an extensive improvement that we've done to our assurance model across the group to make sure that each region is measuring and expecting to the same standards. And then we haven't just made it like an audit, we built in coaching into the process of assurance so that we can help people get to the same performance level. First line of assurance is leadership within the unit. The second line of assurance is at a segment or region level. In some regions, they're too small to have region leadership to do it. So in those regions, we have the corporate health and safety group specifically provide the second line of assurance. And then we have a third line of assurance, which is our internal audit group. They are really good at protocols and methods for doing audits and assurance. From a governance perspective, this is best in class governance. Given coaching, and it has led to improved results across the group.
I'd like to bring you in here on the specific recommendation to adopt industry best practice for process safety management. Could you explain to us, to me, what process safety management is, what you're doing to address it, and to mitigate process safety related risk?
Process safety management is something a little bit new for the steel industry. It's a very well established methodology in the oil and gas. And at the heart of it, at the core of it, is avoiding unplanned large scale release of energy. So when we take it into the steel industry, we're talking of unplanned release of solids, gases, liquids, molten slags and metal, and of course, energy. We wanted to expand a little bit more the concept of process safety management. We wanted to include asset integrity. And we also wanted to address construction and certain aspects of project management. In all these areas, you need three things to come together. You need engineering expertise, you need operational knowledge, and you need safety leadership. In the case of operations, we have been working on assessment of what we call gaps in our operation. We have also engaged with external consultants to bring in a very systematic, dedicated process of rolling out or developing the PSM concept. So for process, there are three areas. First, we identify the top risk scenarios. Then we immediately talk about minimum barriers that have to be implemented. And then moving forward, we need to ensure that these barriers are maintained, that integrity is maintained. In the case of projects, we have defined two areas. One is that in design, we need to ensure that certain basic design concepts are included. And then second, for construction, we need to make sure that we have very clear guidelines and methodologies in place to ensure that construction safety is managed. So you can see that in both the areas that I've talked about, the expert knowledge is a very critical aspect of ensuring that we have a proper PSM methodology in place. We have launched several pilots to get this process started. We have 12 pilots on the process side, and we have 4 on the project side.
Robin, returning to you and staying on risk, what about operational risk? That was another core recommendation. What's happening there, and how do you manage the situation with contractors? How do you ensure that they adhere to the same standards?
First of all, we are revising our fatality prevention standard to make them even clearer. As we're not much changing the requirements that we have because we think that they are at the right level, but we are making sure that they are very clear and very well understood everywhere. We have introduced a concept which is called critical controls, which is typically a kind of go, no-go condition. So our technical fatality prevention standard lists a series of controls that should be there. And among those controls, some are critical, some are called critical. These are the ones which are really having a big impact on the risk and the control of the risk. And those ones are typically go, no-go criteria. Same as the life-saving golden rules, for example. If a life-saving golden rule cannot be respected, we must stop the work and find a solution before resuming. It's the same for a critical control. If a critical control is not in place, we should stop the work. It's a go, no-go criteria. We also put a lot of emphasis on reaching full compliance to our technical fatality prevention standard. We also put emphasis on contractor management. So here it's basically making sure that we make no difference between in terms of requirements and demand between our own employee and our contractor.
Brad, if I can come to you, moving away from risk management to the other pillar of your safety strategy, which is culture. The audit recommendations talked about the importance of creating one safety culture. What does that mean? How do you go about creating it? And what progress have you made over the past year?
Thanks, Tom. It's a great question. And I'm sure that you and all the listeners can imagine the footprint, the size of ArcelorMittal's, with us covering every region in the globe. We have a lot of natural cultures, and they're different. They're all different. So trying to create one consistent culture around safety is a challenge. So first thing we do is try and help everyone understand what it means, what this culture means that we're trying to create. And we start with the Bradley curve. It's a well-published curve. It describes the different stages of culture. There's 4 stages in it. But we try and help everyone understand that stage 3 is the minimum we need to get to in the short term, which is everyone embraces all of our standards and our rules and wants to apply them in all the work that they do. And then we're trying to push the whole organization into the interdependent culture. That's the one safety culture we're really after. So, how do you change culture? The importance is with leadership. And we've spent a lot of time explaining to all of our leaders how important it is and what they need to do to drive change and set the standards. We've now created a new and enhanced model for competencies for all leaders. And we're in the midst of assessing them all and helping them understand exactly what we expect.
Pinakin, you mentioned some pilots of PSM across the organization. Can you talk a bit to those pilots, what you're doing and what you've learned from them?
So we looked at our entire flow sheet from mining through steel production, and we identified 12 areas, what we call unit operations or action areas, where the risk of PSM events is the highest. The focus of the pilots is to train and show and mentor in the detailed methodology of process safety management. At the same time, others from the segments and others from the same plant are also involved so that they can take this learning and then start to roll it out to other unit operations in the same plant and to other plants. What we are learning from our pilots is that even in some of our well-performing plants, we have seen that there are gaps. And what is very good that I've seen is that many of these plants are immediately taking the action steps to address, to close these gaps, and then move forward in instituting the full range of the PSM practices.
Returning to you, Brad, what we've talked about here is a truly huge change management exercise. Huge in terms of scale and scope, and in terms of the number of people involved from the shop floor to the board. How do you manage that?
First thing everyone needs to understand is that in change management, it's always bigger than you think, and it takes time. So we started with unique and specific roadmaps for each region. So even though I say we're moving to one safety culture and one set of standards, the performance was uneven, therefore the gaps are uneven. And so every region had to take these recommendations and map them to their specific situation. Now, key to any change management is engagement and alignment. And it starts with massive amounts of communication. And again, it's always multiple times more than you believe, because to really embed this, people need to understand it many different ways. But we have done that, and we have safety first and foremost in everything we do. Our business planning reviews, we have extensive safety talks. There is no topic that is covered as extensively as safety. We still have to do lots of training together with this to make sure that we have the right safety skills. Without the skills, the culture can't be there either. So even though I said these are two pillars about risk management and culture, they're highly integrated.
My final question is to all of you, but I'll start with you, Pinakin. In terms of the progress to date, what are you most pleased about? And what area do you feel needs more focus?
What I'm very pleased with is that there is a very strong and realization that process safety is in fact a very critical aspect of our, not only our safety, journey to zero philosophy, but also it's very closely tied in to our aim to be a reliable operation globally. What we need to do moving forward, I think, is two things. First of all, that even the sites which are not the pilot sites today should start training their workforce and should start implementing some of the what we call the minimum barriers that have been identified. At the same time, we also need to significantly increase our focus from our top leadership, and this has also been put in place following the convention that we have in Madrid last year.
To you, Robin?
I think the most significant progress so far is visible on the leadership impact on the culture. I think it's becoming really clear to everybody that the commitment is very strong. The energy is highest than ever before. And this can be measured through, for example, the Speak Up survey. We are performing some large-scale survey every 6 months in the group on a wide variety of topics, of which health and safety. And the KPIs, the indicators on health and safety questions clearly show strong and steady progress on perception, the way safety is perceived within the organization, and the effort put on safety is perceived. So we have a series of KPIs, lagging or leading, that are clearly indicating that we are making progress.
To you, Brad, to finish up.
So I'm going to reinforce really some of the comments that both Pinakin and Robin made. The first point that I'm most satisfied with and see is the engagement. And I'm talking engagement from the executive office to the shop floor. So we're very encouraged that everyone is seeing the change, everyone is engaged in the change, and they see that senior leaders all want to get to zero in terms of serious accidents at ArcelorMittal. Okay, so we've been intensively working on this for 15 months, I'll say, since the audit. So again, very encouraging initial results from all the work. So we see the feedback from the people. We see the feedback in the key numbers we're trying to drive. And so, I'm just impressed with all of this. And I do see this focus each and every day. It's all moving in the right direction. We have a lot of work to do again this year, but all of the initial results are very promising, Tom.
A truly colossal undertaking. Congratulations to all of you on the progress so far.